But like I did crazy experiments where I spent like 100 and something or 200 and something thousand on clothes and wanted to see what that did in business meetings.
You've been doing this for a long time. So Neil Patel, which is kind of like a personal blog where you're talking about like, hacks and experiments and strategies that you've, figured out. Can you say how many millions that brought in client bookings, what for the agency? Like how big did just the referrals from Neil Patel get you before other stuff kicked in, like word of mouth and being recognized in the industry and other things like that?
I think the Neil Patel brand got us to around like 30, 40 million in revenue. And then word of mouth started kicking in, and then other things started kicking in, and employees started bringing in their own deals because they've worked in the space for so long. And then we saw more and more growth, got awards that brought us deals. Being a minority owned business, that helps. Believe it or not, if you're Indian and you live in the United States, you're considered a minority. And
I was about to say, are we a minority?
Yeah, I feel like you guys
I feel like I never get minority.
I feel like
credits.
you're the majority of CEOs out there. So I mean,
it's funny because we go through RFPs and some of them ask if you're what is it, like MBE certification or something like that. I forgot what it's called, or minority business enterprise. And I was like, well, I'm not a minority. There's like 1+ billion of me in this world, right? And they're like, oh, you're a minority. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's like 1+ billion Indians in this world. How are we a minority? And they're like, oh, in America, you're a minority. And in some of these RFPs, it says in there, we're looking for LGBTQ. I don't know what all four of the letters are.
You have the tattoo on your arm.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, the Q's there.
That, and then women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, and the other one was minority. And I was just like, wait, there's actually a quota that these big Fortune 500 companies have to hit? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, I'm a minority. They're like, well, you need the certification. And I was like, I gotta have a certification to tell you that I'm a minority? And at first I didn't realize I was a minority. They were telling me, oh, you're a minority. We reached out to you. We're hoping that you would be a good fit. And I'm like, I'm a minority. And they're like, yeah, you're a minority in the United States. You'd help us meet our quota. Do you have the certification? I'm like, what are you talking about? And then we went through the process and got the certification.
You got to get your papers, bro. You got to get your papers right.
I would have been offended. And then as soon as I realized, wait, this is to my advantage. Oh, hold on. I also got solar panels on my house. Does that help? I'm a dog owner.
Wear glasses.
Yeah, exactly. I have a vision impairment called farsightedness. So what else works in my favor here? Was the certificate just turn the webcam on and it looked at you and it was like, yep. And that was it.
That's not enough. And what's funny is our COO or VP operations, one of the titles, I forgot what Tracy's title is. She asked me for this like 6 months before we did it. She's like, hey, I need your birth certificate. I'm like, yeah, why do you need my birth certificate? She's like, oh, we need it for this certification. I'm like, whatever. And the moment someone ended up telling me how Magic Johnson generates a lot of his revenue because he's a minority and gets a lot of contracts, partners with other businesses, white labels it, and uses his name, becomes a quote unquote owner of that business, and then outsources.
Oh, wait, tell me about that. Give me an example. What's an example of the Magic Johnson formula?
Sure. So I don't know if this is true. This is just what someone in the minority space ended up telling me. So that's the caveat. I don't know if this is true or real. And they're saying, let's say if someone has a food company and they have the contracts with a lot of the hospitals that are run by the government, like the VA, they're looking for minorities to provide it, but there's already a lot of big corporations that provide the food. So Magic Johnson may go create a business that's in that space, partner with the big supplier who already provides the food to these hospitals. He'll go get the contracts and then work with them to actually fulfill it.
Yeah, wait, Sean, you never heard of this? My in-laws own a moving company, and they're minorities. They're Black, they're Haitian immigrants, and they win deals partially because of that reason. Because like Morgan Stanley or something like that, if they want to move, they have some type of policy in their company. It says we want to get RFPs or we want to get bids from these types of companies.
I had no idea how. Obviously I knew this exists. I just didn't realize how significant it was. I definitely didn't know the Magic Johnson formula, which is frankly genius on his part, if that's true, actually what he does.
Right? We don't know that part, but if it's true. But think of it this way, right? It's a quota. So if I go and I get an RFP, let's say from Boeing, which funny enough, we lost the RFP because we were over price for what they wanted. And let's say
Racist.
the price is very similar to the competition. I have awards showing that we were the agency of the year. So like, all right, these guys are good at what they do. We have the case studies. And if we're similar pricing, like, oh, this is minority, helps us hit our quota. Let's give the business a year.
Right. Yeah, of course. You have some merit to go with it.
For the first $30 million of business, you got that, and you must have gotten that by year 2 or so if you're growing this fast. What was
Year
the
three.
main year 3? Sorry.
Year 3.
What was the main service? Like when I think of like, because I went to your website and I actually submitted a lead to figure it out. There was the maximum, you ask what your website is and what your budget is. And it's like 0 to 10,000, 10,000 to 20,000, and then just 50,000 plus. So were you serving like mostly small businesses? And what were you doing as simple stuff as like making their Yelp page good? Like what were you doing?
Yeah, so it's not that small. We do have some SMBs like that, but we actually first started off in mid-market. Our clients would pay us like a minimum of 10 grand a month.
And what would you do for 10,000 a month?
So nothing was cookie cutter. It was all custom. So like maybe they need SEO, maybe they need a help on paid management, maybe they needed some CRO or email marketing or a little bit of everything, right? But the plans would start at 120 a year, right? 10 a month, and scale up from there to 20 a month, 30 a month, whatever it may be.
What was most in vogue as the service when you started, like the trend everybody wanted? And then what's the in vogue thing today?
When we first started, it was mainly SEO. That's
and what does that mean though? What does that mean? You use HA revs or something and your employees like look which terms they should rank for and then you write an article for them?
So it was optimizing their on-page code, helping build links, creating content, promoting the content, and making sure that traffic converted into leads or sales, assuming if they weren't services. And it was a positive ROI for the customer.
That sounds like a ton of work for $10,000 a month.
It would start at 10. It depended on the keywords, how hard they were to rank for, and it would go up from there.
And what about now?
Sam, I love when you describe people's businesses because you're just like, so what does that mean? You just Google their name and then it doesn't show up, and then you go write an article with their name, and it's like, what's the hustle, dude? You just read the New York Times and then you just cut out half the words and then you hit send in an email? Like, is that what the hustle is?
Yeah.
Nailed it.
I mean, it can be. There's always more nuance and complication in reality. But like, if you can explain things in a fairly simple way, where it's like, what's HubSpot? Oh, they just make software so when people sign up for your website, you can email them and call them. You know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to dumb it down a little bit.
You can simplify HubSpot. But when you look at the business, when they first started, massive churn, had to add tons of features, had to figure out onboarding, had to figure out training. There was a lot of stuff that went to make HubSpot a multi-billion-dollar company, right? A lot of people look at it as email, but they do more than email. They do more than a CRM. They've added, actually, if anyone in this space has a ton of traction, they have a history of adding a lot of those features for free, which is a smart model, and then gobble up market share, get them into the ecosystem, and hopefully they stick around.
And so what's the popular?
You should do the ad reads for us. Yeah, that was amazing. By the way, Sam, I think you should make Suburban Dictionary, which is just you explaining businesses without like any of the complicated stuff. Like, yeah, what is it? Well, if you get customers,
we're gonna call it like the three.
Call them and email them.
The 3-syllable dictionary. Like I explain complicated things, but no word is above 3 syllables. That's what we're gonna call it.
Exactly.
What?
By the way, I was just gonna say, Ben brought up one point on that minority thing. Ben, you want to say that? That sounds pretty interesting. You slacked us something.
But Neil kind of mentioned this too, but like this is really, really popular in government work because the government is like very hardcore about hitting their quotas for racial minorities. And so around here, like I actually know a couple guys, and basically what they do is the people I know are all African American. They get the contract, they put their name on the contract. They then outsource the entire thing to like Deloitte or KPMG or whatever, and they take like 15% of the revenue or whatever.
They create a consulting firm that's like the Minority Inc. And then Minority Inc. goes and gets the contracts and farms it out to like Deloitte or whoever.
That's great. Neil, was QuickSprout, Ben, there you go. Was QuickSprout, I mean, so that was your main business. QuickSprout and Crazy Egg were your main business for a while.
QuickSprout was just a blog. And then my co-founder, Heathen, ended up taking it over, and now it's his blog.
So, but what was your main source of revenue and income? Because like I said, I've listened to you forever. Like you've been crushing it. It seems like financially for like 10 plus years.
I don't know if I'm crushing it, but the main source of income was Crazy Egg for most of my life. And then it ended up becoming the ad agency.
And Sam, you said something at the very beginning that if I was listening to this, I'd be like, wait, hold on. I want to hear that story. You said something like, just for kicks, he would like spin up a business that like did 100K a month in revenue. What's an example of that? Tell that story, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so everyone thinks like it's really hard to make money online, and then you got these shysters who are like, buy this for $1,000 and you become rich, which never really happens. Maybe every once in a while, but for most people it doesn't. So I was like, I create a business on anything, and people are like, go create a nutrition business. My audience picked, I gave them like a lot of different options. They picked a nutrition business, and I was like, all right, let's create a blog, get it ranking, get some traffic, and then funnel people in through quizzes, through emails, and let's funnel them into supplements, rank higher on Amazon, get traction, and see what happens. And it did well.
And that took you like months, years?
No,
How long did it take you to get
it
that
wasn't
big?
months. It was much more than that. I think it
It's
was
like a
like
year, right?
a little bit less than a year. I think it was like 9 or 10 months. So it wasn't like 1 or 2 months, sadly, but a little bit less than a year. So it was pretty good.
It was an awesome blog post series, Sean. You got to Google it. Google like Quick Sprout or Neil Patel, then like $100,000 a month, and it was like a monthly update. It was pretty amazing.
I don't think they may have deleted it now. I don't know if it's still aligned, but and then so I took the money I made from Crazy Egg and I would park it into other things. So it's like stock market for a long time. The stock market's had a really crazy run, right? Then you also have things like investments, a lot of venture funds, angel investments, and then sometimes you just get lucky, sometimes you don't, and it's a numbers game.
We had talked about doing a content series like this to grow the podcast. I was like, I think one of the best ways to grow the podcast could be if we do a challenge like what you had described. And one of the ideas was like, what if Sam created his own Sam Sticky Icky, his own condiment brand, and we basically show how we build a D2C brand, like from the idea to like branding to marketing and we just do it all transparently to like get people hooked on. Okay, let me see how you guys actually build this thing. Now it's a lot of work, which is why I think ultimately we didn't do it. But how well did that work for you? Was that like just kind of like a good content thing, or was it like, no, that was like drove a lot of growth for the brand and the blog? I'm curious how well that worked for you.
It didn't drive as much growth for the brand, but it did help out every little bit. Like I did crazy experiments, so I spent like 100 and something or 200 and something thousand on clothes, and wanted to see what that did in business meetings. Spent money flying first class everywhere. Wanted to see what that would do. But yeah, I tried a lot of different experiments, and it was just for shits and giggles. And it was also a reason to justify some of my expenses. And I was like, I want to fly first class because I remember my first time flying first class, someone else paid for it. I'm like, wow, I've been missing out. This is a lot better than being crammed up and flying all the way to Europe from Los Angeles, in economy. And then I was like, man, let's do some experiments and let's see if I can justify this expense. But yeah.
That's amazing.
And did you say early on that you just gave Heaton? So did you invest in Heaton Shaw's other company, Sean, Nira?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're both investors in Nira, which is Heaton's your cousin, right?
No,
or brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law.
Yeah. Sorry. And Heaton's amazing. He's a great blogger as well. And Sean and I both invested in his company called Nira, which is either gonna be a dud or it's going to be like the biggest company ever. I know it's like a company that's like they're going to close like multi-million-dollar contracts. I would guess it's like a big old business, potentially a big old business. But did you say that you gave him Crazy Egg?
So with Crazy Egg, what ended up happening is what I wanted to do is we were doing business forever together. And then eventually I just said, hey, you can have the monthly distributions and I'm going to go create another business.
Why would you give that? Why?
He didn't ask for it, nor did he care for it, nor did he want it. He's never been about money. Neither him or I have. And we're not rich. I can't actually speak for him. I'm not rich. I've just done well enough and I don't spend as much. So it's like, don't really need the money. Does that make sense? Like if you just don't spend money, you don't really need much cash.
Dude, you just said you dropped $200,000 on clothes. What do you mean you don't need money?
Well, that was an experiment, right? But, but that's not my daily life. Like I'm wearing a white T-shirt with stains that my kid spits up on. Um, they're probably like 10, $20. I don't know what the white T-shirts cost, but they're not really white anymore. So I try not to do video recordings in front of white walls anymore because you can just tell the discoloration from it. Nonetheless,
So did Sam say you live in Brazil? Is that what?
no, I have a division in Brazil. Like we do marketing in Brazil for Brazilian companies.
And you live in Texas? Where do you live?
Vegas.
Vegas. Okay, amazing. And so have you is it easy for you to keep your burn rate down? Because like I was telling Sam this, I spend like, I don't know, $25,000 a month now, just like, and I don't even feel like I'm
Dude, I
balling
think
out,
Sean,
you know?
I think you might spend more than that now. If I bet you add it up, because I know how you spend. I bet you it's more than 25.
It might be a little more, but it's not more than 30. I would say I don't think it's more than 30. So, but
You have
like,
kids?
yeah, I got two little kids, but they're like babies, like you know, like they don't even eat food, you know. So you know, there's diapers, sure, but like it's not them, it's me. So
That's a good burn rate. I would take 30.
you said it's a steep burn rate, or it's a
Good burn rate. I would take it. I would trade with you.
okay, gotcha. So when you say you don't
How-
spend much, what do you say is your monthly burn rate? Because I think for most people listening, right, they like most people don't talk about how much they make or how much they spend. All right, how much you make, sometimes that's sensitive. How much you
It's
spend?
not bad if I tell you how much I burn on.
Well, but Neil, you actually wrote this in a blog post. You said I spend. This was, I don't know if you're. I have no idea if you're single or if you have a family, and you can
I have a
avoid
family
that
of
if you.
people. My
Great,
burn
okay.
rate right now.
But you
And I
used
don't-
to say in your blog post that you go $15,000 a month is all I need. I'm happy. That was like 10 years ago, I think. But
Correct.
but
And
you
you
used to say
just-
15,000.
Single and no kids, it was easy. Right now, if I had to guess on my burn rate, 120 to 180 a month.
What?
That's insane. So how does that break down? So what's the bulk of it? So house probably is the biggest one.
No, I have no mortgage.
Okay, so you're spending 120 to 180K without spending anything on your home.
Property tax. For both my homes and HOA dues is probably close to 200 a year.
Okay, great.
So
What
a little
else?
less than 21.
So we've got 12,000 of the way there.
All right, yeah. yeah. So there okay.
Life insurance is 25 grand a month.
What?
My whole life policy, yeah, that's 25 to 300 a year.
No, wait, what?
Wait, I can't, what the hell is a $25,000 a month life insurance policy? What, can you explain that?
This is just a benefit. Like if I die, my wife and kids get money, like a life insurance policy.
Yeah, well, I get that, but is that normal? I've never heard like either I'm dumb or you're dumb. Who's dumb here? Am I dumb because I've never heard of anybody spending that much on their life insurance policy?
It's like an investment account. It builds over time. So it's not like it goes away, right? Most life insurance policies are for, call it 10 years, and then you buy another one. Mine just keep going and you can borrow against it. Just think of it as like an investment vehicle. So that's 25 a month.
Okay, I see. Now I understand.
Staff, cleaners, nannies, driver. We have a full-time driver. I think that ends up being around 57 a month.
5,700, 57,000.
1,000.
You know, a driver, Uber. What? Why?
It would be more affordable. So I optimize for convenience. In Vegas, I go through this company. They charge a hefty premium. I go through this company and I have decals on my car. So if I do a meeting in front of a casino, the car can just stay in front of the casino and doesn't have to move. If I'm going to the airport, you can straight up pull up into the plane or whatever you want to do, and you don't have to go through terminals or anything like that. So that makes life easier.
So part of your strategy, as I'm picking this up, is that you live the best lifestyle you want, and it's all expensible the way you do it.
I don't know if it's all expensive.
Like, is that what
It's
you meant with the
probably a little-
decal? Like it's a company, it's like marketing, it's like a marketing vehicle for you.
So there's a limo company. If I have their
You have like a
decal on my
permit.
windows, I pay them. I can end up parking wherever I want in theory. Not literally wherever I want, but in most cases, I can park wherever I want, and the car can just sit there and wait for me.
So, all right. So what else? Anything else? Do you fly private?
He's like, I buy a daily
Yeah.
Disneyland fast pass just in case I decide to go that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fly
You,
private for convenience of time.
What's been the number one like kind of like where you feel like most people think this is too expensive and not worth it, but for me, I get way more value. I'll give you an example in my life, right? So I thought I had burn rate until we started talking. So this is great. I'm feeling so much better about myself. But the one thing I did was I hired a private chef. So I was like, all right, that I think I always thought that's the lifestyle of the rich and famous. And I thought, wow, that's cool because you eat healthy and it tastes great. You don't have to fuss with time and cooking and dishes and groceries and all that stuff. And so to me, it's like a no-brainer. I'm like, dude, anybody with any kind of money, you should be like, that should be one of the first, like fancy car later, private chef now. Like, cause I'm like, to me, the value, the reward way outweighed the cost. And I think most people don't typically make that trade. Sounds like you've experimented with many ways of spending money. What has been a good reward for cost trade that you're like, this one is great that most people don't do?
I don't know. I'm in a bubble because I have a lot of friends who are like me, sadly, in which we spend a lot and we don't know what's reality. I know that sounds bad to say, but it's true, right? Uh, Cook is not bad. Housekeeper isn't bad, so you don't have to do your own dishes and stuff. Although funny enough, I enjoy doing that and ironing because it's
That's a
kind of
good
like
one.
meditative
Yeah.
for me. It's relaxing. I don't know why watching TV and ironing. Um, Nannies help, so you get the freedom and you can watch your kids when you want to, but you can also do meetings and stuff like that. Um, probably the best expense I ever spend on is private planes. Not because I like it. It's I don't mind playing commercial. Not really any difference for me, but it helps me optimize for time so that way I can see my kids more. 'Cause I have to sometimes do a lot of meetings for work and just going and then coming back the same day, just really in and out really quickly. Like sometimes I'll be home quick enough, like go from Vegas to Utah for a conference, speak, come back, and I'll be home quick enough to pick up my kid from school. And like to me, that's really well valuable. That's worth the
so
money.
are you saving any money then, or I mean, are you just taking a fat draw from the agency in order to pay for this, or are you able to expense a lot of it to the agency? How's that work?
I don't expense any of it to my company. I just personally
Wow.
pay for it.
So you're just the agency is just that profitable of a business. It's doing that well.
Or investments or savings. I've done well enough in life where I'm okay.